Welcome back. Last time we talked about different kinds of play, but this time we're going to examine the question of why it is that people enjoy playing. What is it exactly that's pleasurable about playing a game or a sport? And for today, we're just going to have three key words: Sigmund Freud, Eros, and Thanatos.
So why do we like to play sports? If you ask somebody, they'll often just say, well, it's fun to play. I like playing tennis or basketball or whatever. It's fun to play. And that's a good enough answer. But what we're trying to do in this course is to get beyond surfaces and to try to develop deeper explanations for things. And actually, the question of why we find it fun to play sports has some pretty complicated answers. First of all, there's the whole question of what sport it is, because what we find fun about a sport really depends on the sport. Every sport, in other words, has its own particular joys and pleasures. So in mountain climbing, for example, reaching the peak gives you this flush of excitement and wonder and awe and satisfaction. But in basketball, the pleasure that you get might be throwing a tricky, clever pass through a couple of defenders to allow your teammate to score. So each sport has its own particular pleasures, its own particular ways of being fun. And there's also questions of geography and of politics and of history. For me, for example, it's not that fun to watch a cricket game on TV. And that, I confess, is because, like most Americans, I'm totally ignorant about, I don't even know the rules of cricket. So it wouldn't be fun for me to watch a game on TV, and I wouldn't particularly enjoy playing cricket because I don't know how to play. But if you're watching now from India, the chances are pretty good that it would be fun for you to watch a good game on TV or maybe to go out and play. And that has to do with world history and with colonialism and with India's place in the world. India was colonized by the British. The British brought cricket to India, and it took root and became the national sport in India, with a fabulous national team with fabulous players playing the game. So the point is that fun also relates to patterns of geography and history and politics and where you grow up and the history of that place. And the larger point that I'm trying to make is just that fun and what we find pleasurable in a sport relates to a whole lot of different factors. It relates to the particular sport, it relates to history and culture and politics, and it relates to other things as well. And here, a quirky thinker who I think we can draw on for thinking about the role of pleasure and fun in sports is Sigmund Freud.
Sigmund Freud lived in the early 20th century. I'm sure almost all of you have heard of his name, maybe read some of his work. He was the founder of psychoanalysis, and he wrote a lot of things that were very important still for anthropology, psychology, sociology, and social theory today. Now, Freud wrote one of his books called Beyond the Pleasure Principle, and included in that book his account of a specific case that he wanted to explore. He wanted to explore the meaning of this case. And this case involved a young boy that Freud had observed in Vienna sometime in the 1920s probably. This was a very little boy, probably only about 2 years old. And what Freud found out was that this little boy's mother was often leaving, traveling, going away to other places, and leaving the boy alone with his nanny. And Freud found and noted and observed that the boy began to develop a game that he would play when his mother was gone. And this game involved something like this: tying a piece of string to a little wood toy, and then taking the wood toy and the string and throwing it over the side of his crib, like that. And then the little boy would reel the string back in, pull it in, and when he saw the toy again, he would exclaim, "Da!" This exclamation of happiness and how pleased he was to have the toy back again. And what Freud hypothesized was that in real life, the boy really had no control over his mother's movements, and he didn't like the fact that she was always leaving, but she was, and he couldn't do anything about it. But in playing this game and throwing the toy over the side so that the toy disappeared just like his mother did, in this case, though, with the toy, he could reel the toy back in. He could control the movements of the toy, And therefore, he was very happy and pleased every time the toy reappeared, every time he pulled it back over the crib. Now, this might not seem to have anything to do with sports, this example, but actually it does. Because one of the things about sports, and I would say about play in general, is the pleasure that it gives in this ability that it gives us to think that we're controlling things. Let me explain. The reality is that we live in a universe over which we have absolutely no control. One of the basic facts of life is that all of us are going to die. I'm probably older than most of you. I'll probably die first, but all of you are going to die. I hate to tell you this. So we live in a universe that in some ways is a sad place, is a place that we cannot control. We can't control that basic fact that we're all going to die. But when we're out there on the sports field or playing some kind of game, we have this illusion that actually we can control things. Take the example of golf. Golf is a sport that often seems very frustrating. People are getting angry and throwing their clubs. If you go out on a golf course, you often see people swearing, "Oh, why did I hit that stupid shot? I'm so mad." And they'll throw their clubs and be very angry. And you wonder, well, this doesn't seem to be very fun or relaxing to play golf. So why are all these people out there? And if you talk to a golfer, and I happen to be a golfer, one of the reasons that they have fun at golf, despite all the frustration at not playing as well as they think they should, is that one golf shot, or maybe two or three or four, or if you're Tiger Woods, 50 or 60, that feel perfect. That one golf shot where you set up, you take a swing, and you hit the ball exactly where you want it. It rises up into the big blue sky, goes exactly where you want, and falls down next to the hole, or maybe into the hole. And in that moment, with that perfect shot, you feel as if you're controlling the universe, as if you've made the laws of physics obey your own dictates, made the ball do what you want it to do. And this applies not just to golf, but you could think of if you play basketball, that one moment when you hit exactly the perfect shot, you make the perfect motion, or if you're a figure skater and you do that jump exactly right. This, I think, is a fundamental part of the pleasure of sports and of play.
So sports give us this momentary illusion of control over what is a fundamentally uncontrollable universe. And the pleasure of this illusion of control relates to what Freud calls eros. And eros means love, but it also means pleasure and beauty and excitement and ecstasy. And all of these qualities are part of sports and why we like sports.
But Freud also had a different interpretation, a second interpretation of the little boy's game. He said that the little boy would throw, as you'll remember, the wood toy over the side. And he speculated that the boy did this because of the joy of eros, of being able to control things in the way that he couldn't control his mother's movements. But Freud's other alternative hypothesis was that the very act of throwing the little toy over the side reflected the fact that the boy was angry at his mother and wanted to do injury to her, that he wanted to throw the toy out, and that he was very upset with her. And this relates to what Freud called thanatos, which is the opposite of eros. Thanatos is the death wish. Thanatos is anger and destruction and envy and brutality and horror and meanness. And I think in play, and certainly in sports, thanatos is also part of the story. When you think about the violence right now of American football, a sport I love, but that we now know is very dangerous for your health, or if you think about the bitterness and anger of sometimes of competitors who are bad sports when they lose, or think about Nancy Kerrigan and Tonya Harding, two Olympic skaters back 20 or 30 years ago. Tonya Harding contracted somebody to break the kneecap, to break the leg of Nancy Kerrigan so that she couldn't compete in the Olympics. So in sports, I think there's always a dimension of thanatos as well as of eros. There's pleasure and beauty and joy, but there can also be danger and envy and hatred and anger. And in the rest of the course, we're going to be looking at the ways that both eros and thanatos are part of the story of play, part of the story of sports. We'll be looking particularly next time at the rise of modern sports, at the invention of modern sports leagues, modern rules for sports, something that happens in the 19th century. I'll see you next time.